Okay, I am going to be incredibly excited to go through, look at some running backs here that are going at the very beginning of fantasy drafts and tell you shouldn't be drafting these guys because you can find the same exact running back production. You can almost find the same exact running back in the same exact situation rounds later at a much cheaper price tag. And oh, this is a great video idea. Saw it from Nick Ricolano, figured that we had to go through, we had to make this. But before we get into it, we have red flashing lights, emergency, massive announcement here. We have our 2022 fantasy football draft guide available over there on flockfantasy.com. I'm recording this video a couple days early. Hopefully the editor has gotten it to me by the time this video is out. If not, it will be out tomorrow, the second that it is launched. Everybody who's pre-ordered the draft guide already, of course, thank you so much. It should be sitting in your email. Just go ahead and make sure you go and search for that. And on flockfantasy.com, if you go and use the promo code FLOCK, I don't know if you can remember that. It's very complicated, but you will get an exclusive discount the month of July if you use code FLOCK at checkout with anything you buy over there. Our 2022 fantasy football draft guide. I could not be more proud of it. Over 200 pages of quality information. But let's dive into our first running backs here. Let's go ahead and let's look at a running back that I don't have to tell you, I was so hyped on him in 2021. And I don't know how much hate for it. Every single comment section, I had people telling me, Mason, you clown. How are you drafting a committee running back in round 3? How are you drafting a committee running back in round 4 when they play for the Detroit Lions? That was what our comment section looked like. And I was going out and saying, yeah, I agree. I'll admit, DAndre Swift's in a committee. You're looking at DAndre Swift as a running back that is never going to command 70% of his touches in his backfield. He's never going to be Ezekiel Elliott, Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry. No, of course not. But we don't care if he is or not. We've talked about this time and time again. You need every touch in your backfield if you are not going to be an elite passing down running back. If you're Derrick Henry, yeah, you better get every single carry. You better go out there and be the workhorse running back if you're not going to be racking up 4, 5, 6 receptions a game. But you can overcome the loss of carries between the 20-yard lines if you're a running back, if you're getting those targets out of the backfield in the usage in the red zone. What makes DAndre Swift different than J.D. McKissic, what makes DAndre Swift different than a player like Nyheim Hines is he is not just getting every valuable touch for running backs in the passing game, but he is also getting every valuable touch in the red zone. This is what we look for. This is what separates running backs from being J.D. McKissic to being Aaron Jones, to being Alvin Kamara. We look for running backs that are going to get every single target out of the backfield and look for running backs that are going to get every single touch in the red zone. We've talked about this for years now. They're high value touches. We learned this back in 2018 with the combination of Aaron Jones and Alvin Kamara. This should have been common knowledge for a long time. So yeah, DAndre Swift only accounted for about 46% of the carries on a per game basis for this Detroit Lions backfield. Now, is that the end of the world? No, I don't give a damn. DAndre Swift was still their running back 10 in fantasy in his second year in the league. Now, he did this because he averaged 17% of his team's target share in Detroit. That is an elite level mark, and it's making people a lot more excited to draft DAndre Swift this year than they were last year. Now you're looking at DAndre Swift as the running back 8. He's going directly behind Joe Mixon, Dalvin Cook, and Najee Harris. He's going at the beginning of the second round in fantasy drafts. However, do I think we should draft DAndre Swift at this price point? Do I think that he can have the same level upside that you had from a prime Aaron Jones, that you had from a prime Alvin Kamara? No, I'm sorry to say it. I'm sorry to come out on the record and say, I do not believe DAndre Swift has that same level of upside. And is it because DAndre Swift isn't the same talent as those players? No. I think DAndre Swift's an elite level talent. I think he is a truly special player. But what separates Aaron Jones and Alvin Kamara in their prime from DAndre Swift in his prime? Quarterback play. Aaron Jones played with Aaron Rodgers. I'm unsure if you've heard of this guy, Aaron Rodgers, but he is a hyper-efficient quarterback, and inherently, touches in his offense are going to be significantly more valuable than touches in Detroit. And with Alvin Kamara, I am unsure if you've heard of this, but he played with Drew Brees. Now, Drew Brees, I know not many people watching this video will have ever heard that name, but just trust me on this one. Please trust me. He was an above average quarterback. Some people may say he was one of the best quarterbacks of all time in the NFL. That's what separated Alvin Kamara and Aaron Jones and gave him those top 3 finishes at the position. With DAndre Swift, he is not going to be playing in an offense of that nature. And I am also concerned about DAndre Swift this year in that the target share is going to come down. I loved drafting him in the 3rd and 4th round last year because I looked at Detroit and said, hell, are we expecting Khalif Raymond to be a great receiver? Are we expecting Amon-Ra St. Brown, a 4th-year rookie, to be an elite level wide receiver? Much better than expected. No, we weren't. So we thought DAndre Swift could get to 17, 18, 19% of his team's target share. But this upcoming season, Detroit has Amon-Ra St. Brown, who is proven to be a great slot wide receiver at the NFL level. They have DJ Chark coming over. They have Jameson Williams coming over. TJ Hawkinson should be healthy. I think this is going to put a cap on the target share you have for DAndre Swift in Detroit. I think that target share honestly maybe comes down to about 15, 16%. And DAndre Swift is yet again a low-end running back one this upcoming season. So I'm sorry. I loved him in the 3rd last year. I think the situation's slightly worse. I'm not going to be drafting him as running back 8. Give me Aaron Jones over DAndre Swift. But there is one running back you can draft that checks all the same boxes as Swift. He's a running back that was an elite receiving back coming out of college. He is a running back that is big enough to also handle a role in the red zone. Now, no, he's not going to get every single carry between the 20-yard lines, but we don't care, as we already discussed. Travis Etienne. If we head over and look at Underdog Fantasy right now, you have Travis Etienne going rounds after DAndre Swift. DAndre Swift is going at the beginning of the 2nd, where you're having to take DAndre Swift over a wide receiver like Mike Evans. You're having to take him over Mark Andrews. Whereas you have Travis Etienne going right before Jalen Waddle, Terry McLaurin, and Deontay Johnson. You're not having to pass on Mike Evans to get Travis Etienne onto your team. He's going behind Courtland Sutton. He's going behind Hollywood Brown. And Travis Etienne checks all those same boxes. The difference is as well is if we go ahead and look at the Jacksonville Jaguars, well, yes, I don't necessarily want to say Trevor Lawrence is going to be a much better quarterback than Jared Goff. I don't think we can say that he's going to have much better quarterback play in Jacksonville. Very similar to what we were looking at with DAndre Swift last season and why I was so excited to draft DAndre Swift in the 3rd and 4th round of fantasy drafts. There are not too many receiving options in Jacksonville. Travis Etienne, I think, is a sneaky candidate to actually be one of the very few running backs that can get up to 18, 19, 20% of his team's target share this season. I think Etienne may even have a larger role in the receiving game in Jacksonville compared to DAndre Swift in Detroit, given the change in personnel from these offenses this season. So this is the perfect example, in my opinion. Don't draft DAndre Swift at the beginning of the 2nd over Mike Evans. Hell, instead, take Mike Evans there, and instead of drafting Courtland Sutton at the end of the 3rd round, grab Travis Etienne. Give me Mike Evans and Travis Etienne over DAndre Swift and Courtland Sutton any day of the week. But real quick, if you want to go get in real money fantasy football drafts, go do so on Underdog Fantasy. When you go and sign up for Underdog Fantasy and you use promo code FLOCK, most importantly, you can have some fun. Get in on the drafts with us in the live stream. On top of this, go ahead and fire up some drafts in the public lobby. But when you use promo code FLOCK, very similar to flockfantasy.com, you're going to get some added on bonuses. You're going to get our 2022 rankings, our 2022 Dynasty rankings, our Dynasty Rookie rankings, and our Dynasty Rookie Draft Guide. Soon, that will change from our Dynasty Rookie Draft Guide to our 2022 draft guide if you go and use that promo code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy. But let's move on. Let's look at another running back that's going right before DAndre Swift. Let's look at a running back that is going to have a ridiculous workload in his offense. He is going to have almost every single carry out of the backfield. He is almost going to have every single target out of the backfield at the same time, but there are a couple red flags. This is going to be a very bad offense in general. It's going to be a bad offensive line. You're going to have bad quarterback play. And on top of this, this is a running back that doesn't really have too many big play abilities. If you go out and look at last season, is a running back that indicated that, yes, he's going to have a very high floor, given the fact that, like we said, he's going to get every single touch out of the backfield. But the ceiling may be slightly capped because he had like 2 runs for over 20 yards with over 300 touches. This is Najee Harris, if you don't know this by now. And with Najee Harris, I will admit, very high floor player. If you want to go ahead and if you want to just say, Mason, I need a top 10 running back. I need a running back 1 almost guaranteed. Najee Harris is probably your guy. He's probably going to be a low-end running back 1 guaranteed because he does play a ridiculous amount of snaps. Now, there have been reports coming out of Pittsburgh saying, okay, Najee Harris isn't going to have the same workload. He is going to get more rest every single week this year. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it at all. Who the hell did the Pittsburgh Steelers bring in at running back to be able to give Najee Harris a break? No, he's still going to get every single touch out of this backfield. Please don't buy the fact that Najee Harris is going to all of a sudden have a smaller role in Pittsburgh. He's still getting every touch. But going back to what we said, there are still red flags with the quarterback play, with the offensive line, and with the offense in general. And I would be slightly concerned with Najee Harris in his target share in this offense compared to last season. Because remember, Ben Roethlisberger, he could not push the ball down the field. Ben Roethlisberger was extremely limited where he had to go out and he had to check down very often Najee Harris. Now, I'm going to pull up something that's not in our draft guide, but I probably should add it in our draft guide because it is pretty damn funny. Let's pull up the game log for Najee Harris and let's go look at 1 week and 1 week in particular. Let's look at week 3 against the Cincinnati Bengals as the perfect example of Ben Roethlisberger skewing the target share and skewing the targets per game for Najee Harris. Week 3 against the Cincinnati Bengals. I just want y'all to guess. If you were in the premiere right now, guess how many targets do you think Najee Harris had? Did he have 7 targets? Oh, that would be a lot for a running back. 9 targets? Did he have 12 freaking targets? Like, imagine Najee Harris, a running back that big, drawing 12 targets in a single performance. No, he didn't have any. He had 19 targets. 19 targets to Najee Harris in that one performance. Do we think we would ever see something like that with either Kenny Pickett or Mitchell Trubisky? No, I think the targets per game actually come down ever so slightly for Najee Harris. Still a very high floor player. But there's another high floor player that has some similar red flags. He's not necessarily going to be a big play producer. He is going to play in an atrocious offense overall. And on top of this, you're going to be looking at him as a running back that gets every single touch out of his backfield. Now, let's go and look at the 5th round instead of the 1st, where David Montgomery right now on Underdog Fantasy is going at pick 50. David Montgomery is going after DK Metcalf. He's going after Allen Robinson. He's going after Jerry Jeudy. He's going after Gabriel Davis. We talk about this in our draft guide. We've talked about this on the live stream as well. But if we go ahead and you look at that David Montgomery workload from this past season, David Montgomery's very comparable. Over the past 3 years, he's averaged over 63% of his team's carries on a per game basis, has had a target share over 10% as well. That's a workload that is very comparable to what you'd see from any bell cow running back, with Najee Harris in particular as the perfect example. And with David Montgomery, this is a player that has the same exact concerns. He is being drafted this late because his offensive line, because he has Justin Fields. Now, if we're looking at the questions with his workload, because that's one of the reasons he's being drafted later, people are saying, oh, well, Mason, you had Herbert breaking out. Maybe this turns into a running back by committee. No. Yes, Herbert broke out in games that Montgomery missed last season. But once Montgomery was back from injury, here were the carries per game for Herbert. 4-1-4-4-1-0-2-2-4. Averaging about 3 carries a game. David Montgomery's still the bell cow. Now, if we go and look at the opportunity cost, very similar to what we did with DAndre Swift and Travis Etienne, would you rather have Mike Evans and Travis Etienne, or would you rather have Courtland Sutton and DAndre Swift? Let's look at a wide receiver going in front of David Montgomery. You have say, Allen Robinson going 3 slots ahead. You have Jerry Jeudy going 4 slots ahead. You had Gabriel Davis going 5 slots ahead. Pick any of those guys. We'll just randomly pick Gabriel Davis because he's always going ahead. He has an ADP of 46 compared to Montgomery at 50. Would you rather have, say, Gabriel Davis and Najee Harris? Or would you rather have David Montgomery and a wide receiver that's going behind Najee Harris right now is Devontae Adams? Or maybe you would rather have Travis Kelce in that same range, or Dalvin Cook. Like, ask yourself this. Would you rather have Dalvin Cook and David Montgomery, or would you rather have Najee Harris and Gabriel Davis? I'm taking the Montgomery side there. I think they're the same player. They're not going to be popping off for big plays. They're going to have a massive workload. They will be involved as a receiver, yet they play in very bad offenses behind bad offensive lines. So I'm just going to go ahead, draft Montgomery in round 5 because I think it's a more reasonable price point. And our last pairing to bring up is very funny here in that you have a backup running back, someone that is 100% a backup in his offense, currently on Underdog Fantasy, going at pick 83, going as the 28th running back off the board, going right behind Clyde Edwards-Helaire, right behind Miles Sanders, and he has never started an NFL game. You have Tony Pollard in this range. Tony Pollard, as we said, a running back that I will admit, he has an elite level ceiling. If you're looking at Tony Pollard, this is a running back that, yes, it is true. If Ezekiel Elliott were to go down, he's the running back 1 in fantasy. Maybe not the running back 1 overall. Of course, that's an over-exaggeration, but he is a running back 1, to say the least. He's going to be a top 10 guy at the minimum. But in games that Ezekiel Elliott plays in, Tony Pollard's not going to have a large enough role for you to actually start. Well, yes, Tony Pollard, if we go ahead and we pull up our draft guide, there are a ton of reasons to be excited about Tony Pollard this upcoming season. You are looking at Tony Pollard as a running back that's been more efficient on a per game basis over the past 3 years than Ezekiel Elliott. Tony Pollard every single season has beaten Ezekiel Elliott with yards per carry. Pollard does play a little different role in this offense, so that is going to skew the statistics. Not necessarily like Pollard's a better running back, but he has been hyper efficient. Tony Pollard's also had a larger role every single year over the past 3. You're looking at Tony Pollard in 2019, 20% of the carries per game. In 2020, 23%. In 2021, 31%. Just the straight trajectory where he is having a larger and larger role in this offense. However, Tony Pollard was the running back 37 on a points per game basis last year. You can't start him. You can't start him even with this expanded role when Ezekiel Elliott plays. So he is just exclusively a handcuff running back. Now, who is another handcuff running back that could be a top 10 option if the starter were to go down in front of him? And we've actually seen it before from Alexander Madison. And I would prefer Pollard over Alexander Madison in a best ball format because I do think randomly Tony Pollard may spike into your starting lineup on a week-to-week basis. But if we go ahead and look at Alexander Madison in games where Dalvin Cook hasn't played, Alexander Madison has been a top 5 running back. In the 6 games Dalvin Cook has not played since 2018, Alexander Madison has averaged over 20 carries a game. He has averaged 4.5 targets a game, and Alexander Madison has averaged 20 fantasy points per game. That is incredible. What else could you ask for? And what I am looking at is the fact that Pollard has an ADP of 83, and what you would assume Madison, almost the same player. We've seen the actual upside play out in games where Dalvin Cook misses. Also, Ezekiel Elliott never misses time to injury, legitimately never, whereas Dalvin Cook has, on average, missed about 4 games every single year since he came into the NFL. So maybe you would make the argument Alexander Madison should be drafted ahead of Tony Pollard, but at the minimum, they should be drafted in a similar range, where Tony Pollard, let me remind you, is being drafted right after Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Miles Sanders at pick 83. Alexander Madison, on the other hand, is at pick 121. Alexander Madison is being drafted directly behind Ramondre Stevenson, directly before Dameon Pierce, in a completely different range of the draft, despite, in my opinion, them having very similar ranges of outcomes. So if we just go and look at the opportunity cost, very similar to what we did with DAndre Swift, Travis Etienne, very similar to what we did with Najee Harris and David Montgomery. If we're going to look at the wide receivers you have to pass up on if you were going to take Tony Pollard. If you're taking Tony Pollard at pick 83, you're having to pass up on Brandon Ayuk. So let's say you get Brandon Ayuk and Alexander Madison, or let's use a quarterback, Trey Lance and Alexander Madison, or a tight end, TJ Hawkinson and Alexander Madison. Versus if you take Tony Pollard here, the wide receivers that you're going to be taking right over Alexander Madison, Rondale Moore, Michael Gallup, Tim Patrick. Do you want Tim Patrick and Tony Pollard, or Brandon Ayuk and Alexander Madison, or Trey Lance and Alexander Madison, or TJ Hawkinson and Alexander? I'm easily going to prefer the Alexander Madison side, really, with any of those three players. This is why I haven't drafted a lot of Tony Pollard this season, and I do have a ton of Alexander Madison just because the opportunity cost to get these players. But real quick, I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you have, please make sure you go down there, drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. Of course, our 2022 draft guide available on flockfantasy.com. Use promo code FLOCK with anything you buy in the month of June, and you will get an exclusive discount. And also, go sign up for Underdog Fantasy. Promo code FLOCK as well if you want to hop into drafts with us. But thank you again. I appreciate y'all, and I hope you have a great day.